what do you see as the key unsolved challenges in the procurement of services versus the way that the world procures goods and materials?
Um, so we talked about this a little bit. I think some of it is having the right domain expertise on the side of procurement that they can engage with the business partner and be perceived as a adding partner to the discussion. Too often, I think procurement is viewed as kind of transactional, pushing the paper, checking the boxes, but the end customer, the internal customer, doesn't feel like they're getting anything out of the exercise. So I think having some domain knowledge and being able to bring that information, that value to the business partner is a huge part of it. And then I think probably having the flexibility in the process and the technology that's enabling the process so that it can be configured or structured in a way that will support the myriad of different kinds of services that are being acquired, whether it's IT or legal or engineering or construction. We call them all services, but they're very unique and different in terms of, how you specify it, how you price it, how you manage it, how it's delivered, what outcomes you're seeking. Are they tangible? Are they intangible? There's so many variables there that I think the flexibility of the technology or technologies is also critical as well.
Yeah, I'd completely agree on that. When you talk about the domain expertise, this is really interesting to me because I kind of look at it and is that from a category point of view, or do you see that as from the kind of procurement point of view in terms of the value they can add? Because I always look at the processes. You've got a buyer, you've got an organizational buyer, you've got a supplier, you've got procurement sitting in the middle, and they should help facilitate the scoping of the requirement and the choosing of the supplier on one side of the equation, and on the other side of the equation, they're there to help, contract effectively with that chosen supplier and actually this is one of the more arguable ones, to have some sort of involvement or responsibility with the delivery of that service, i.e., did we get what we paid for? Um, do you see that kind of domain expertise more as like a category-led, I understand the procurement of IT services type approach, or more of a procurement domain expertise in the sense that if you're writing a scope of work, it needs to include, milestones, deliverables, assumptions, dependencies, et cetera, that might be required? Is it more that kind of this is the kind of structure and content and approach you should take to procuring the services, or do you feel it's that actual expertise in the subject matter?
I think the answer is yes. I think that the kind of table stakes is that procurement process expertise. So I think anybody who's trying to um, enable services procurement with an internal customer needs to know that those steps that they need to go through and the components that make up the process. But I think the category expertise is what really makes a difference. So if I think about it from my point of view, I would say that I understand the consulting domain better than anything else, right? But the way that I would structure a an RFP, a statement of work, the metrics that I would want to include, the way that the services would be priced, and so on, I think is unique to consulting. Legal is going to be different, marketing is going to be different, engineering is going to be different. So I could work with an internal customer and help them through the um, setting up of consulting services, whether that's for a ongoing relationship or an individual statement of work. I would not have the domain knowledge to help the legal team go through the same exercise in selecting a merger and acquisition law firm. So I think it's a category, as you're saying, it's category domain expertise that enables you to have that almost peer conversation with the internal customer in terms of how are you going to get the most out of this service and how are we going to run the process in order to make sure that we get all the value that we could out of what we're going to acquire and what we're going to be spending money on.
So it's about that the category specific structure, pricing, metrics, the things that are driving those side of it. I mean, we see it all the time with regards to, what is a milestone? Is it a project deliverable? Is it a KPI in an ongoing service delivery? Is it a sprint in an agile process? Is it a block of consulting time? There's so many different things that can be a deliverable. And to a certain extent, a system kind of shouldn't care. It should be something that the customer can define as part of that requirement. Um, but yeah, I can definitely see how that specific expertise ties into how you buy SaaS contracts versus how you buy legal services. Um,
Right.
the, but it leads into another interesting area around domain expertise, which is one of the things people find really difficult is writing effective scope of requirements. And quite often, the buying stakeholder within the organization might not be a cybersecurity expert when they're buying cybersecurity services. The procurement person is probably not going to be a cybersecurity expert. The suppliers certainly will be, but it's interesting to see where that can sometimes lead to just a process where it's very supplier led, particularly if it's a direct award type scenario. You've got suppliers kind of marking their own homework. And that's an area where we've seen AI really come into play in
I,
terms of giving people that knowledge.
yeah, I agree absolutely. I think AI is going to have a huge role in this because the it's hard to have all of the expertise that you would want in the category lead. And you're right. If I'm as a consultant, I'm writing the contract, right? I'm going to structure it so that the deliverables are in my favor. And if you don't have the right expertise on the other side of the table, I'm going to get away with that specification. Right. So I think that's where AI, I think, is going to absolutely have the ability to take advantage of all of the other agreements that have been written, all of the other work scopes that have been written, the other specifications, the other SOWs, and almost come up with based on what you've told me, this is the starting point for what your contract should look like, or what documentation should look like. Um, and I think that's going to enable us in a way that individual humans can't, because they just can't have that same depth of expertise at their fingertips.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think it's a sensible use case. It's a worthwhile use case. It's like some use cases of technology and AI, kind of lead you down the road of the system or the AI trying to give you information whether it's right or wrong. Whereas if you're having, you're asking questions and getting information based on more factual based topics where information is available, then I think it's a more appropriate kind of use case for just gathering in from that depth of information rather than expecting an individual to be able to, pinpoint that for every project they're going to carry out, which is just unrealistic.
Right, right. And I think that ties back to your point in terms of data being the secret sauce here.